All right, welcome to the Unspoken Truth. Happy Monday, Ed. How you doing, man?
Hey, Robbie, I'm living the dream. How are you doing, buddy?
Yeah, really well, really well. How was your weekend, mate? Did you get up to anything fun?
Oh, it was lots of fun. I spent the entire weekend trying to get my computer to work. So,
the joys, the IT joys, eh?
Yeah, I hate computers. I hate technology. I hate technology.
Well, hopefully it's everything's okay. We had a bit of trouble on Friday, but all things being equal, everything will be okay. The connection looks nice and stable now, so we're good to go. Welcome to the Unspoken Truth, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host, Rob Bruss. We're live every day here at 5:30 Sydney time, and I'm joined by my fabulous co-host, Ed Anderson, who's live also over there in Minnesota, 2:30 p.m. Minnesota time every day. We like to go behind the stories that are happening in mainstream media, and boy, oh boy, just in a couple of days off over the weekend, there's been a whole lot happening. We're available as a podcast over on your favorite podcasting app, excuse me, and also available on Twitter, Rumble, and Telegram as well. Pop on over to Telegram. We've got a bunch of content over there that we simply cannot share on this platform. We'd love to see you over there. We're starting to get a few more people following along with us over there, which is really good. So that's all very exciting for us, and really enjoying the content over there and being able to share the unspoken truth and show people what's really going on. There's a video I put up there yesterday. I haven't been doing much in the last couple of days because I had a few days off, but there's a pretty hardcore video. Just be careful what you're looking at over there, folks. If you click on a video that's got a black and white thing on the front of it and it says caution, just be careful what you click on because you can't unsee the stuff there. Some combat footage of some Ukrainian special forces that get inside the back end of some Russian trenches and some close quarters combat there at about 1 or 2 meters. It's pretty hardcore stuff, but you also see how hopeless the Russians actually are and their training. You can tell they're conscripts, right? Because they're not even wearing boots, they're wearing sneakers and all sorts of stuff going on there. I saw a video yesterday of a series of captured Russian soldiers. There was about half a dozen of them. And as they're pulling them off the back of the truck, the guy with his camera, he kind of lifts up their blindfolds and he goes, okay, what's your name? What's your unit and where are you from? And yeah, okay, next. And he pulls out about 10 of them and they all kind of get off the back of the truck and they're on their knees in front of them. They're all taped up, right? And he lifts up their blindfolds and he goes, oh, is there anything you want to say? And one of them goes, my boss is a rah, and he goes off screaming about his boss. And it's like, why is he saying that? And some other dude goes, yeah, my boss made me go and dig this ditch and he's done it. They're all complaining. And the Ukrainian guy goes, are you like contract soldiers or mobilized soldiers? And they all said together in unison, we're mobilized. And you look at it and you think, these poor people, I felt for them, right? These poor mobilized Russian soldiers set to the front to do these horrific things that they're not properly trained for, properly equipped for. Now they're captured and they're worried for their lives and they've been put in these circumstances. I'm like, man, the people that send these young men to war are the ones that have the absolute least to lose. And these young men that are sent to war, whether they decide to go themselves or they're mobilized like those Russians that I'm mentioning, it's just an absolute tragedy. And it really highlighted to me the tragedy of war, and it highlighted to me that it's just a complete and total failure of humanity. It's really, really sad. So, have you seen some of those videos I've been putting up there, Ed, or do you stick with that hardcore stuff?
Well, I saw the one that you sent me the link to the other day, and I regretted it. Watching it. I mean,
you can't unsee it, so just
that's right.
Caution.
I mean, the warning you give isn't a perfunctory warning. You give your warning for a reason. Seriously, anybody who has a soul is going to be disturbed by some things that you see on those kind of sites. So give it a, think about it for a second before you decide to watch those. You might think, yeah, I can handle it. Rob and I think are fairly tough guys. We can handle a lot, but even we are shaken by some of the stuff we're seeing. It is disturbing, and probably the last thing you want to do is watch them right before you go to bed. I wouldn't recommend that because you're not going to get a good night's sleep. When I watched that video, and listen, the video that I watched was just a guy describing what he saw.
Yeah, there wasn't anything even being shown there, was it? Yeah.
Right. So if I actually saw with my eyes, oh my God, I can, I have a newfound appreciation for combat veterans, for with the things that they see and they have to live with the rest of their lives, because once you see it, it's always with you, right? So that's a real thing, and so yeah, like the one video I saw was just a gentleman who was describing what he saw, and he was visibly shaken. He's on the verge of tears, trying to explain what he saw in relationship to children. So we won't go down that hole here, but yeah.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we've got some pretty heavy stuff here for you this morning, but these are the things that need to be spoken about. And part of the reason that I put that content on the Telegram channel is because you need to know the truth, folks. You can't believe the mainstream narrative or the mainstream media, because if you see the fluffy, warm, cuddly things that they're showing over there versus what the actual reality on the ground is when somebody's been blown to pieces, or somebody's been shot up at close range, you will disagree with just about every single thing every single politician ever says to you. So that is the unspoken truth, folks. You have to look into these things, and you have to face these things as well. And we need to keep talking about them as well. One of the stories we've got for you this morning, folks, is about some child trafficking. There's been a lot of that in the news recently. There's been a lot of that pointed at Ukraine, of all places. There's a lot of child trafficking happening on the southern border of the United States as well. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit of depth and share our opinions on it and share some unspoken truth there as well. In other news, Antony Blinken has been in China. He met with Xi Jinping, and the strategic ambiguity continues. I'll show you a 30-second soundbite of him speaking, and I promise you by the end of that, you'll be like, what did he just say? Didn't he just contradict himself twice in 30 seconds? You're like, what? Yeah, he did. John Fetterman also introduced Joe Biden at the collapse of a piece of freeway in Pennsylvania just the other day. And it looked like Joe Biden knew exactly what John Fetterman was talking about. If you haven't seen that video, I'll show it for you. It's funny as hell, but kind of not funny at all at the same time.
Yeah.
And I got a video I want to round out the show with, telling you and proving to you that the government can't change the weather, no matter how hard they try, no matter what policy they try and enact. The government can't change the weather. And funny enough, NASA came out just the other day and said that climate change is a real thing, but that's because of the orbit of planet Earth around the sun. And every now and then we go a little bit closer to the sun because of precession and the way orbits work and all of the technical, physical geometry stuff that you probably forgot about in high school calculus, but they're using that to say this is how the planet warms up and heats down, and it's really got nothing to do with human activity. It's got to do with how close we are to the sun, and really.
Oops.
So I've got a video that kind of
sorry about those trillions of dollars that we wasted. Yeah.
Oh my God, it's just the hypocrisy and the craziness of this world, Ed. I don't know where to go with it sometimes, mate. It just boggles my mind.
Well, it's corruption. And we keep saying, I don't understand these people, and are these people stupid? No, they're not stupid. They have an agenda. This is all agenda-driven stuff.
Absolutely. We've had on the agenda-driven stuff, we've had the agenda for the referendum passed yesterday in Australian Parliament as well. So I've been banging on about the voice to Parliament for the last couple of weeks, and it's been passed as legislation in the Senate. I think not legislation, or they do something. They pass it in the Senate to say, okay, now we're going to enact it and to do it. And it's going to cost $364 million or something like that. That's a huge amount of money, right? And the minute that this has come out, I don't have the video for you, but I saw, because it was late last night when I was looking at it. But the minute it came out, there was Anthony Albanese, the Prime Minister of Australia, and the person who's responsible for helping him to draw up the idea of the voice to Parliament there. And it comes out and he's praising communists. We should thank our communist leaders for what they've done. And, and he's talking about if the politicians don't listen to what we say in the voice to Parliament, we're going to make them pay. And he's got all of this really hardcore rhetoric. And poor old Albo's on the side there going, this is like a small ask. We're only asking for a small thing. And these videos have come out about all of this craziness and whatnot. So I'll have more to say on that in the next couple of weeks, no doubt, because the referendum is in a couple of months. But there's a lot of rhetoric coming out there. And to your point, Ed, the whole thing is just driven by agenda. But what I think it is it's just a giant distraction, because it's distracting from the business of government and administering the country. Would you just please concentrate on the military, on roads, on rail, on infrastructure, and doing what you're supposed to do in government, and just get out of social issues? And I figured yesterday, I was writing some content yesterday, and I thought to myself, all the social issues that we have here in Australia really translate to any country in the world. All countries in the world face the same things. And the size of your country and the size of your population kind of determines how big these social issues affect what's going on. In New Zealand, for instance, they have these social issues where they have, I don't know if you saw the news story came out, but doctors are now forced to consider somebody's race before they operate.
Yeah.
So if there's a white person or a Maori person, they're supposed to consider their race. And one of the politicians is like, you know what, that's it, I quit. I've had enough of your equity and diversity rubbish, I'm out. And he quit. So I think if you remove government from complicated social issues and issues related to family and individuals and personal autonomy on anything really, right? So personal autonomy can be medical, because that's something that it's been top of mind for us for a couple of years now. But if you just put medical aside, personal autonomy in all sorts of things, what you do for a job, how you want to behave, and who you want to hang around with, all of the personal autonomy things and the social issues, government should just cease. And the reason I say they should completely cease those things is because not one of those things that they talk about in social issues, look, they're spending $300 million on a voice to parliament, but that doesn't help with economic prosperity. It actually only hinders, and it doesn't actually create any jobs. In fact, all it does is potentially create treaties with Indigenous people, which require reparations. And really all they want is money. All these people, that's all they want. They just want money for whatever reason. There was part of that agenda, I'll close the loop here for you, Ed, sorry.
No, it's
part of the agenda with this Indigenous voice to parliament, all this rubbish. In Western Australia, they passed legislation saying that you're not allowed, if you have a property that's more than 1,100 square metres, like a quarter-acre block, a typical house block, if you want to dig in the ground, you have to ask for permission to dig in the ground now. And if you're going to move so no more mining, no more farming, no more anything. And if you want to do that, then this is what we're going to do. And they write it into legislation to make it nearly impossible. And if you go out there and do that, you're subjected to a $10,000 to a $200,000 fine, or maybe up to 10 years in jail if you go and break the law and do something against that. So the government, wields this giant hammer, or just giant axe that's going to come down and completely destroy everything that you hold dear to yourself. But that whole thing is not legislation or policy, it's agenda. They're driving some sort of agenda there. It's very, very nefarious and not very nice at all.
Well, once again, Rob Russ demonstrates his white supremacy.
I'm going to get cancelled in the welcome to the show.
Racist.
There it is. We've got Paulie in the chat there. Good day, Paulie.
Hey,
Thanks
Paulie.
for joining us again. It says, there's a comment there, the Dutch started an extra surveillance and security program for the North Sea in front of us, scared as they've become of the Russians. Yeah, of course, right? So, well, if the Dutch are going to hand over their F-16s and they're going to get involved in the war directly like that, and it's particularly with NATO, there's going to be a whole lot of repercussions there. That's the second and third order effects of it all as well, which is pretty scary, really, in the scheme of things.
Yeah.
All right, Ed, you've got some deep, dark, evil stuff going on there for us. Why don't we get into the show and share what you've got there?
All right. So this is a topic that Rob and I have been talking off camera about a lot lately, and it's not a fun topic, but it is an important topic. So I at least wanted to do one segment on it so that we could say we covered it, because it is important, and it is an important touchstone. All right, so let's get to it. It's a very short presentation. It's about 5 minutes long, and then we'll talk about it afterward. So this presentation is not going to be the funnest one I've ever done, and it's pretty serious. And I told Rob off camera that, listen, this is an important topic that I think we have to cover, but honestly, I don't want to dwell on this just because it's so depressing. But I do want to be on the record of covering this topic at least once. So let's talk about it. Okay, for those of you who think that the word evil is overused, and you think, there's not really evil in the world, that's just a word that people throw around. Well, there is true evil in the world, and today's topic will clearly demonstrate that. We live in a time right now where our children are being sexualized and abused on every level, and it seems to be a societal norm right now to start grooming our children at a young age. We get people like this in our school system talking to our children.
It's that time of year again when you start thinking about going no contact. I want to encourage you and say something you may not have heard before. You're going to love it. I know right now all you have is a world and a wall of guilt. And every time you think about going no contact, you just feel this thing in your chest and in your stomach, and you don't want to be that person. And how could you? But she's your mother, and all the stuff that culture tells you. The joy that your life has will make everything not only worth it, but it'll make you content, happy, calm, and in love with life.
He's telling you not to be out of contact with your parents. He's a groomer. He is a groomer. That should be against the law. Kids do.
All right, so something that's really cool and unique about who I am is that I am transgender. So we touched a little bit about that at the beginning of this week in the book that Miss Hammond read, but I'm going to give you my explanation about what it means to be transgender as well. So when babies are born, the doctor looks at them and they make a guess about whether the baby is a boy or a girl.
And people like this are trying to change the norms of our society. We even have elected officials making an attempt to change the definition of those people who like minor children. I'm not going to use the actual word because, I might get censored. They're trying to change their categorization to minor attracted people. Now, Jim Caviezel has been doing a lot of interviews lately talking about this new movie he has coming up called Sound of Freedom. And it's based on a true life story of a gentleman named Tim Ballard, who has made it his life's mission to rescue children from sexual slavery. And I want to play a clip of that radio interview here. But before I do, I want to point out a little unfun fact that in congressional testimony, border officials admitted that they have lost 85,000 children that they took in. They just lost them. They're out there somewhere in the ether. Anyway, listen to this interview.
The real simple version of this is Tim Ballard, Homeland Security agent, a former CIA, is taking down these big traffickers.
Okay, so again, this is a real life story.
He finds one of the worst traffickers at our south border, one of the worst he's ever seen, Ernst Lipachinski. They take him down and they find this little boy. The little boy turns to him and says, will you, 5-year-old boy says, will you save my sister? And it burns in his heart. He doesn't know what to do other than talk to his wife, and he sells everything and he goes down to find this one little kid.
Okay, so imagine that. A little boy turns to a stranger asking him whether he can save his sister.
At one point, we lost all our money because Fox got bought out by Disney, so Disney is holding the purse strings here. We lose the film. Eddie goes out and gets us $5 million to save the movie.
Wow.
You weren't supposed to see this. This is a movie they do not want you to see.
Yeah.
Did you hear that? This is a movie they do not want you to see.
And we're fastly selling out our theaters right now, and we need the people to call to get more theaters. It's like very similar to what happened on The Passion of the Christ.
Yeah.
We were running out of theaters, and then people were calling in and saying, hey, we want to buy a whole theater. Essentially, we just picked up 300 theaters yesterday. But we're outselling Indiana Jones right now 3-1. But we're fastly coming up to a wall that we're going to run into.
Okay, so they're outselling Indiana Jones by 3-1. Very cool. That tells me either Indiana Jones is a really crap movie or this subject matter is really hitting home for a lot of people. Let's hope that's true.
It is the fastest growing international crime network that the world has ever seen. It has already passed the illegal arms trade, and soon it's going to pass the drug trade. Because you can sell a bag of cocaine one time to a child 5 to 10 times a day. God's children are not for sale.
So the industry has surpassed the illegal arms trade, and it's soon going to surpass the illegal drug trade. Now, personally, I think the reason why the elites do not want this movie to come out because they will be exposed. I think we have a lot of elitists who are hip deep in this industry, either as customers or as people making an awful lot of money off of it. I mean, come on. Jeff Epstein commits suicide in prison. His female pal, Ghislaine, whatever her name is, she goes to prison, and we haven't learned a thing about their clients. there should be a man on the moon effort to extinguish these people. Anyway, let's bring Rob in and let's talk about this for a little bit.
Oh man, that is one heck of a heavy topic, mate.
Yeah. Yeah, and by the way, I did a YouTube check, so we're all good on the copyright, no copyright issues on any of that, just so you know, so you don't have to worry about that when you go to post. When you think about the money that's involved, the industry, I mean, it's already overtaken the illegal, gun industry, the illicit guns, and it's about to overtake illegal drugs. I mean, the money behind this, and children are treated as disposable items. And I don't know how far I want to go down that road, but that's a very dark road. Where children.
So the video that you were referring to at the start of the show here today was about a Russian soldier who is being interviewed in Ukraine and has come across one of these facilities. And when these children have been used as far as they can and exploited sexually as far as they can, they send them upstairs to harvest their organs. And the Russian soldier had come across one such facility there, and that's why it's so disturbing. So just scroll down if you want to find some more about that. It's a video that goes for probably 90 seconds, but I've watched that video about 10 times, and you look very closely at this guy's body language to see if it's real. But what you can't do as a human being is you can't fake upset. You have to be a very good actor, a Hollywood Oscar-style actor, to be able to fake that you're disturbed and upset. And you can see this guy when he's talking, like he just is on the verge of bursting into tears. But that doesn't really help. Crying about something doesn't help. Like, he's ready to break down is what he's showing. And there's a couple of other videos that I placed in the Telegram channel there as well. Tell Me It Isn't True is the title of one of them. And they've found 8 of these places inside of Ukraine. And the movie, The Sound of Freedom, is about a person who is trafficking children out of Ukraine. And the Russians have said, when they found these places, that there's no way that the government could have not known about this. Now, that could just be a little bit of Russian propaganda, and they're saying that just to kind of stoke your outrage and get you on their side. But everything that they've said about all of these about child trafficking and what they've said about biolabs in Ukraine has proven to be true. It's true, folks. That's why you need to look into this. That's why you need to look at it. That's why you need to look at it squarely in the face. It is horrendous. It is awful. We completely understand. There's actually a couple of videos out there. The Sound of Freedom is one of them. If you head over to the website, so it's called OUR, so Operation Underground Railroad. So that's what it is. It's our.org. Let me just double check that link for you. So no, sorry, it's ourrescue.org. OURrescue.org. And if you head over to that website, you'll be able to see there's a couple of movies that are in there as well, and you can find out some more about Tim Ballard and what his organization does and how they work as well. So, yeah, man, it's I'm glad that you raised it. I was tiptoeing around the edge of it, Ed, because I didn't know how to talk about it without, like, that trailer for that movie. You can't not watch that trailer and have some level of emotion associated with that. It is very, very disturbing. And what Jim said there in that podcast interview is that people don't want you to see this, folks. They don't want you to see it because they don't want you to know the truth of it. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, you got to ask why. Why isn't this not at the top of every newscast every night? Why aren't the politicians screaming about this every single day? And because if Jim Caviezel is revealing this stuff this is not new stuff. Okay, this is widely known, not among the public, but among the powers to be. They know about this issue. So you got to ask yourself, why? Why is, I smell a big ass scandal coming our way. If the mainstream media actually gets on, I think they're in on it because, again, I think
they are in on it. Of course, they're in on it.
Yeah, I think. Well, yeah, duh. The elite class, the people who hold themselves out to be better than us. They know best how we should live our lives, about what we should be injecting into our bodies, what we should put into our car. They know best about what we can eat. They know best about everything. But these people are evil to the core. As soon as you walk through that secret closet in their house and you see all the garbage and all the dirt and all the sin and evil that's there, hopefully there'll be a reckoning someday. When you hear rumors about the kind of people who are on Jeff Epstein's client list, it's like, are you kidding me? Him? The director, I should have looked up his name. The director of the CIA under Obama had 3 meetings with Epstein to talk about what he was going to do with after he left the CIA. So he's going to Jeff Epstein for career advice, I guess. Come on. So when you have the director of the CIA, you have former presidents of the United States. I have to assume this is one big blackmailing operation on Epstein's case. That's why he was never convicted. That's why he died in prison. That's why he was a billionaire with no visible means of income. So I guess we have to wait for that movie to come out before we learn the truth. But so we have to do what we can to lift the covers for people out there and expose people to the stuff that's going on, because most people, I think, are not really aware. Every once in a while they see something on YouTube, but then they forget about it. But this is an ongoing thing every day. And when you think about the scope of this, and we're talking about this off camera, there's always been people like this in a society. There's always been minor attracted persons in the world. But when you think about the scale that it has to exist at, in order to make this industry the second largest illicit industry in the world, right behind gun trafficking,
arms trading.
Illegal arms trading. And it's almost going to exceed illegal drug trade. How many of these perverts does there have to be? Because that's a lot of money. So this is a massive industry, and that's why I said we need to have a man on the moon program type push. That's what it's going to take to put a dent in this program. In the movie, in the trailer, which I didn't include there, there's a scene that said, well, this is the part of the country we don't go into. We don't go into that part. Screw that, man. You should get together the biggest, toughest, guys you can find. You go in there and say, everything's off the table. You're all dead. You go in there. What do you mean we can't go? Nobody goes in there. Well, just get in there. But we don't have any leadership on this topic.
It's one of those topics where you look at it and the scale of the problem seems to be so large that it makes you question, like, well, why do I even pay attention to it, and why should I care about it? Because there's nothing that I can do about it. But the reality is there's a lot you can do about it. Surprisingly, you could go over to ourrescue.org and support them there. You could make a little donation. You could get involved in their community. You could do something there. But if you didn't want to do something like that, what you can do is support them by watching the movie and opening up the aperture of your life and getting away from the madness of TikTok and all of the other craziness in the world to see actually what's going on in the world, and then talk to another person about it. Share it with another person. So in my life, Ed, maybe this is just a word of warning and a little bit of advice, I suppose. I don't like to give people advice unsolicited like that, but I've been part of a lot of really heavy stuff in my life, and I've seen a lot of really nasty things in my life. So think of like something that a paramedic goes through on a daily basis. The paramedic sees the carnage of society continuously, right? That person, believe it or not, suffers from severe PTSD. There's plenty of paramedics and police officers and firemen that leave the job because of what they've seen and the PTSD that they've seen. And you don't realize, but when you expose yourself to these types of things in a 90-second movie trailer, there's a small amount of PTSD that happens to you because it shifts the chemistry in your brain, and you're like, man, I can't unsee that. That is just so, I can't believe that this is going on. And you end up unraveling yourself a little bit like that. So what I would say is if you find that's happening to you when you're looking at this topic, what you need to do is you need to decompress, is the way I describe it. And the way, so you're watching all these things and they wind you right up. It winds you up. You can't believe it. And then you stop watching it and then everything unravels. So the way to stop yourself from unraveling completely is to talk to somebody else at the same time. I know I've listened to a series of really, really heavy Jocko podcasts. So there's one particular one called Unit 731, and it's about the Manchurian Project. And the Manchurian Project is when the Japanese went into China in World War II. And what they did is they were trying to recreate biological weapons. And what they were trying to do is recreate plague. And a lot of people think that plague comes from rats, but it actually comes from the fleas that bite the rats. And then the rats get plague, and then the rats go all these different places, and then the fleas are biting the rats, and the fleas are what's transmitting the plague everywhere, right? So they spent a long time trying to recreate plague, and they let it loose into China to see if it works, and all this sort of stuff is going on. But in the process, what they're doing is they end up operating on live Chinese prisoners, and they do this thing called a vivisection. You might have heard that word before, and I promise you, if you read that book, it is the single most disturbing thing that you've ever read in your life. What we're talking about here in this child trafficking and stuff is like, it feels like a kindergarten picnic compared to that. I think that's my reference point that I've had in my life for a long time now. When I first heard about that, you've heard about the Manchurian Project, you've heard about this, you might have heard that word that I just said before, but you don't know what it is. And until you know the real detail of it. And I remember getting to the end of that podcast and just being like, oh my God, just being so like, it disturbed me for days. I couldn't unsee it and I couldn't unhear it. But then I realized that what you got to do is you got to actually talk to other people about those things. Have you heard of this? Did you know about that? Have you seen this? And when we talk about these things and we share that with other people, actually what we're doing, you're doing God's work when you go out there.
Yeah.
I'm not a religious person, but you're doing God's work because you're saying, don't let this happen. Whatever you do, if you see something, say something, do something about it. This is your opportunity. This is your chance to do something about it. It's scary stuff. It's very, very disturbing. And just know that can happen to you as well.
Yeah, and and a symptom of the disease, of this sex trafficking disease, is the wokeism that's going on in our countries, where they're normalizing sexualizing children at a very young age. We have parents taking their preschoolers to transvestite twerking classes and lessons. What the hell? And so the idea, they're twisting the idea of what it means to be normal, and they're demanding, and that small sliver of the minority, that are transphobic and have actual dysphoria, they are demanding that we accept them and their message for everyone else.
I don't accept it anymore. I don't care what anybody says anymore. I'll die on this hill. I don't care, man.
Well, okay, that's you. But how many people? There's a little bit of encouragement at the reaction to, the Bud Light controversy and the Target controversy and the Northern. So people are pushing back. So the silent majority is starting to make itself heard now with dollars. So that's good. That's a good glimmer of hope. Now what we need more parents showing up at PTA meetings demanding the resignation of any board member who allows CRT training, BLM training, Pride Month, indoctrination training. They got to be gone. We got to wipe them out because they're grooming our children, who make them prime targets for this sex trade. Anyway, so.
So I've been listening to a book called The Puppeteers by Jason Chavez, I think his name is. I think that's how you say it. Sorry, Jason, I butchered your name. He was a congressman. And so...
Jason Chavez, yeah.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah. So the book is about who controls the puppets that you see in front. So you see Biden, you see all the politicians, but who's really controlling them? And what he does is he does a really good job on the front end of the book. I'm only a couple of hours into it. It's pretty short. It's only about 5 or 6 hours. But it's really good because what he does is a good job at showing us how social credit scores in China exist, and it's on your phone, and I tap onto the bus and there's a picture of somebody on the bus who's been a naughty boy, and all of that social credit scores in Western countries like we have here in Australia or United States are not like tapping onto a bus or to a train or a plane with your phone or something like that. It's to do with ESG. So ESG is the modern version of social credit scores because they'll never be accepted into our society. Everyone will just tell you to piss off. But ESG is something that companies can overlay onto us. And part of the ESG, so environment, social, and governance, so the S part of it is related to all of this equity, diversity, and inclusion. And throughout the book, at the front end of the book at least, he talks about how companies are forced to have equity, diversity, and inclusion policies, which is everything that you were talking about with Bud Light and Target and all of that garbage. And they have to go through these things. Otherwise, the people that are on the board will be completely cancelled off the board because the people that are actually the biggest shareholders of these companies are the ones that say what the diversity and equity policy is on the inside of it. So then when you back up just a little bit further and you say, well, who are the biggest shareholders of these major companies doing this equity and diversity garbage? Well, it's the BlackRocks, the Vanguards of the world, and those large companies, right? And then you think, okay, cool. But I'm not a direct investor in Bud or in Target. I'm an investor in the index fund. And so normally as the investor, I would be investing directly into the actual, to the company. But what he shows in the book is that people are not investing in the companies as a singularity. They're investing in an index fund, which is a basket of these companies that goes up and down to negate your risk. And because the BlackRocks and the Vanguards of the world own those index funds, they're the ones that are shareholders on the boards of these companies, and they're saying what's going. And so the equity and diversity and inclusion and the ESG policies that are out there, they're the things that are actually driving what's going on in relation to all of this transgender garbage. It is just complete and total hogwash, absolute hogwash. And that's where this world, unfortunately, that's where this world is going.
No, you're absolutely right. You nailed it. You know, I actually did a video recently detailing these woke investment companies, and I ranked them according to which ones are the most woke and which ones are the least woke. That is, say which of these investment companies focus on companies that are woke and which ones don't.
Right.
And you're right. Vanguard and Blacktop, they're right at the top.
They're right at the top of it there, aren't they? Yeah.
So
absolutely.
Okay, so sunny time. So everyone's in such a really good mood right now. I'm sure everyone is so happy they tuned in. Don't worry, people. It's going to get better. All right,
I'm going to make you laugh in a sec. I'll start off with a bit of humor when we get going. All right, let's take a little break and we'll be right back. We just want to remind you, ladies and gentlemen, that today's show is brought to you by you. In this crazy, uncertain world, we all need a way to protect and insulate ourselves from the outside forces that we simply cannot control. I'm a news junkie, and after a lifetime of constantly immersing myself in the darkness and the despair that engulfs the world, the path to shield myself and my family has become crystal clear. I want to invite you to come and join me in the Unspoken Truth community, where I'll show you how I protect my family from this crazy world. You'll get access to 3 masterclasses worth over $1,000, as well as our live events, training, and community of truthers just like you. Come on over to the unspokentruth.com.au and join us for just 50 cents a day. What are you waiting for? Get started now at the unspokentruth.com.au. All right, let's lighten the mood, shall we? Why don't we have a little bit of fun? My light went out there. I fixed it in the little 20-second break there, and I'm all good now. So you know that...
Got to pay your bills, man.
No, that's it. The PowerPoint was unplugged. So you might have heard, folks, that this is actually what happened to the interstate, the I-95 in Pennsylvania. And man, you know what? I look at these pictures, Ed, and I think to myself, how on earth did something like that happen? Well, apparently there was a truck on fire underneath the bridge, and that's what caused it to collapse. But then I look at that and I think you can spend billions and billions and gazillions of dollars on sending weapons to Ukraine, but you can't keep your own infrastructure squared away like that. It just boggles the mind. And so
these things do happen from time to time. Actually, there was a famous bridge collapse right here in Minneapolis about 12 years ago. The I-35W bridge, where they went over the Mississippi, and the bridge and the entire bridge just collapsed, and cars went in and everything. I'd gone over that bridge about 5 minutes before it collapsed. It was,
Oh,
it was on my
really?
way. Yeah, I was on my way back from the office that I was working in. So, that was a big event, back. So these, any man-made structure, things could happen, right? And now some of them are built worse than others. But all the more reason why we got to get our kids better. They got to study their math, man, because we're going to rely. You rely on these guys, and you feminists, you better buy your man a beer every night, because those are the guys that keep the bridges standing up.
That STEM stuff is really important, yeah?
Yeah.
Science, technology, math, and all of that stuff. Let's have a little laugh at John Fetterman introducing Joe Biden. See if you can decipher what he's actually said here.
Next to a collapsed bridge here, and he is here to commit to work with the governor and the delegation to make sure that we get this fixed quick, fast as well too. This is a president that is committed to infrastructure, yeah, and then on top of that, the dual kind of a law of the inflation bill that is going to make sure that there's going to be bridges all across like this, all across America getting.
Sleepy Joe Biden there was almost having a snooze, man. Like,
yeah. I mean, when you have Joe Biden correcting the speaker, that's
what do you think as an American when you see that, man? They're the people that are in charge.
Well, okay, it's on the one hand, it's sad, right? Because Fetterman, he's a stroke victim, right? That's not a laughing matter. And you got Joe Biden, where he's suffering from dementia. These are normal human beings.
Also, not a laughing matter.
But the fucking president of the United States. Listen, you get what you pay for in a democracy. We voted for these people. It just goes to show that people these days are not voting in their own self-interest. They're voting out of ideology. They're going to vote for the guy because the machine tells you that's who you're voting for. If you're a Democrat, and if you're going to be a loyal Democrat, you got to vote for the guy that we tell you to vote for. It's old world politics. So it doesn't matter anymore who the politicians are. You made a joke the other day about your PM. It doesn't matter who the PM is. The deep state runs everything. It's the guys behind the office. They're the guys who control everything. So
in the book that I've been reading, he talks about A team and B team, and somebody from the A team comes in as a new congressman or whatever it is, and he wants to talk to the other person that's on the A team, and the B team are actually the bureaucrats, right? So the deep state, so to speak. And he's like, I don't want to speak to the B team. I want to speak only to the A team. A team talks to A team, and the B team guy goes, yeah, you probably don't want to do that. And he said, well, why not? And he said, well, we're the B team. We've been here before you were here. We're going to be here while you're here, and we'll be here after you've been here. We're the ones that decide what goes, and we're the ones that decide what's actually going on. So,
exactly right.
All jokes aside, you say John is introducing Joe, but, John's not really running the rock show there. So he's got a team of 20 people behind him telling him, hey, boss, this is what we recommend. This is what we should do. And he looks at those three options and go, pick B. That'll do. Do that. That's the B team, right? And that's the deep state. That's actually what's going on. And it's really interesting hearing the congressman himself write that in a book and tell you about that firsthand, because it's what you suspected the whole time, but you're getting it straight from the horse's mouth. And they're the people that are really running it. And to your point, they are just sock puppets that are there. And the name of his book describes it perfectly. It's called The Puppeteers. And the people that are behind deep state, or the deep state that are behind the politicians, are literally, they're the puppeteers. They're the ones controlling the strings and saying what's going on there. It's crazy.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of something to add to it, but yeah, I think
what we know.
Yeah, I mean, this is we've covered this so many times from every angle, and at this point, if people don't realize this, I don't know what more we can do outside. Maybe you're new to the show. Maybe you haven't heard this before.
Well, showing John Fetterman introducing Joe Biden is one that actually it helps you to understand it. I've got another one, a little bit more humor here for us. Do you want to close the loop, close your thought, finish?
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
All right, I got Corinne Jean-Pierre here,
Oh.
claiming that I knew this would wind you up a little bit. That's why I found it. It's very short, folks. Just bear with me. Remember that Anthony Fauci said, look, you know, when you're denying this, you're denying science, yeah? And I am science. Remember he said he was science? Have a close listen to what KJP says here.
Role. There's been a couple of things that has made me incredibly proud. Many things that made me incredibly proud to be at that podium during this historic moment. Again, this is a historic administration. I'm a historic figure, and I certainly walk in history every day. But this is also a historic making administration because of this president.
Me.
What a fucking moron.
So, but
Well, at least she's not claiming to be science. She's claiming to be history.
Yeah, she's going to be history, right? Okay.
Are you all right?
Just go. Yeah, no, I'm boy, wound up is right. These people are, these liberals, they don't assign jobs according to merit. They assign jobs according to which box you check. You know, she's a female black lesbian too, right? She's a female.
No, they're all the wrong boxes, man.
Yeah.
The boxes that she's ticking is arrogant, smart ass, stupid, and
she fits right in. She fits right in. No, she is incompetent. She's stupid. But the sad part is she doesn't know she's stupid. She right? She thinks that she's throwing out these pearls of wisdom to the world, and she's God's gift to communication. And everyone in the audience is saying, "What? How stupid is this woman?"
Everybody should start their day with hypocrisy and stupidity like that. 6:22 in the morning here for me, and I just laugh my ass off at this stuff. So as dumb as these people are, it's actually good for me to watch this stuff.
It's useful because when you think about all the big social issues that go on in Australia that they're fighting over. And Australia has like 400 people in the entire country.
Yeah, I know. There's only 40 people in the suburbs.
Yeah. But they're very tuned in on topics. They're socially educated. Oh boy. Look, this is why I think the upcoming presidential election, it's going to be a hoot, and in a very ugly way. The deep state, they're going to pull out every dirty trick they can think of, regardless of who the Republican nominee is. But if it's Trump, they're really going to go after him. I mean, I don't know what more they can do beyond trying to put him in jail, outside of putting a bullet in the back of his head. This guy, I shouldn't make a joke about that. But these guys they'll pull out every dirty trick. The thing is, you got to wonder whether they've done so many things already to this guy, whether they made him indestructible. They made him Teflon. Because the public is going to say, yeah, here we go again. They're not going to believe these guys anymore. It doesn't matter what the audience, somebody could find something true about Donald Trump, maybe
no one will care.
No one will care. Say, but they won't believe it. The public won't believe it because, you made up so much other stuff. We don't believe you anymore. So so
what about this fighting back to the deep state? So we know the bureaucrats lied to us about COVID. They lied about the vaccination. They lied. It's all come out. All of it's come out. And RFK Jr. was on Joe Rogan just the other day. You mentioned that you saw that. If you haven't seen that, folks, go and check that out. Yeah, it's really good. It's 3 hours of your life that you'll be glad that you spent with him. You're watching this Hollywood garbage continuously and this Netflix rubbish. Do something for yourself and watch that. So Joe Rogan, after that interview, came out and said, hey, why don't we get Peter Hotez and RFK Jr. on a debate? I'll facilitate it, and I'll put up $100,000 for charity if you want to come on. Because that Peter Hotez guy has said that he will never debate anybody, and he never will, because he's a shill of Big Pharma, and he's on the take from government. He's on the take from Bill Gates. And the whole thing is completely and totally and absolutely 1,000% corrupt. Everybody knows that. He went out there using his credibility as a medical doctor, saying that this is actually a really good thing and everybody should get this. But we all know that the whole thing was a lie. The whole thing was a lie. And Joe Rogan put up $100,000 for charity, and everyone piled in. I don't know how new this is. This was from 11 o'clock last night, but the pot is up to $2.62 million of people saying that. Andrew Tate came out and said, I'll put in $500,000. And there's all of these people coming out saying that. So I'm sure it's a whole lot more now. But Peter Hotez came out and said, come on, Joe, $100,000 is what you spend on a hunting trip for your mates on the weekend. Once you make it up to $50 million, you and Spotify, then we'll think about doing it. So he puts it at a point where, even if it did get to $50 million of donations to charity, would he come on and be debated? The answer is no, he won't, because he'll be completely and totally found out, and all of his credibility will be gone, and by association, all of the government's credibility will be gone, and all of mainstream media's credibility will be gone. And that's why Deep State have completely silenced any pre-selection. Because RFK goes up against Joe Biden, will destroy him. RFK goes up against Donald Trump, will completely and totally decimate him. RFK goes up against anybody on virtually any policy, he will win. So Deep State is saying, no, we're shutting that down. We're not doing any of that. And now we're fighting back a little bit. And it seems like we're fighting back, but it's just Joe Rogan just going, hey, man, I'll put up $100,000. Just get him in the studio here, man. It seems like we're fighting back, and it kind of is. And everybody else is piling on in an attempt to fight back. And to your point, Ed, that's the beginning of all of this really nasty fight that's about to begin.
Well, yeah. Well, and this is the value of alternative media. This is the value of programs like Untold Truth. So if you haven't subscribed, please hit that subscribe button, because this is where you are going to hear the truth on programs like this. And you need to be a discerning consumer nowadays. The good news is that if you want to get the truth, you do have ways of getting it, like from people like you and me. Whereas, when I was growing up, we had 4 television stations. That was it. Talk about stranglehold, on the narrative, right? So these days, it's more of a challenge. And that is why you see the Deep State finding ways to censor us without having to do it directly. They go to Facebook, they go to all these social media platforms, and they give them backdoor instructions about how to do it so that they're hands off. They're arm's length away. So they
not
don't.
Us.
Yeah, not us. But and this is where capitalism plays a role, because just like water is going to flow to the lowest level, people, freedom-loving people, they will find the platforms that are truly free. They will know which platforms are censoring people, which platforms are punishing people for saying the truth. They will find it out, and they will gravitate away from those and toward the platforms that do treat them well, do treat them with respect. So that's a glimmer of hope. But the Deep State, they're going to do everything they can to protect their domain. So that's why the more that their powers are threatened, the more they're going to come after you. That's why Trump, he's got to be ready for everything, man. It's just going to get worse and worse and worse. It's not going to get better. They're going to come after him with everything. The thing that man has had to put up with the past 8 years, it's no other human could be expected to withstand that. You got to give him props just for that the guy is still standing, right?
Well, I saw some Deep State stuff in action just the other day. Matt Taibbi and Michael Schellenberger came out and found who patient 0 was in Wuhan. So we now know that there's 3 scientists that were working on bat coronaviruses, and they were all infected, and they happened to work at the Wuhan Institute there, and it's assumed, I don't know, how do they know, but it's assumed that was patient 0. That's who it is, right? And he posted that on Twitter, and he said, I think it was Michael Schellenberger posted on Twitter, and he said, hey, I put this on Facebook and got 40 shares or distribution to 40 people, and then I put it on Twitter, and in the first 10 minutes it got 400,000 shares or something like that. He said, whatever you do, just don't go to Facebook. Just stop it. Don't go over there. They're controlling the narrative completely. I put this out there. It's it's checked. It's proper journalism. It's the real thing. But Facebook just don't want to know about it, and that's how they're continuing to censor you as well. And it goes to the heart of that conversation we were having the other day about I was trying to Google something, and I see all of the information in Telegram. I see it all on Twitter, but then when I look in Google, it's like radio silence there. And Google are also curating the content for what you want to see as well. So it's funny. When it comes to, content creation and curation of content, I want to shift gears here to Antony Blinken, and I want to see if anyone in the audience can figure out actually what he's saying. The policy on Taiwan for a long time has been one of strategic ambiguity, and I think that really clarifies, it's an oxymoron, it's ambiguity, but it clarifies exactly what he's saying. Let's take a listen. He was in China just in the last 24 hours, and check it out.
Reiterated the long-standing U.S. One China policy. That policy has not changed. It's guided by the Taiwan Relations Act, the 3 joint communiques, the 6 assurances. We do not support Taiwan independence. We remain opposed to any unilateral changes to the status quo by either side. We continue to expect the peaceful resolution of cross-strait differences.
But what? What? It just doesn't make any sense. We accept the one China policy.
I know,
but we're going to arm you. He never said that. There's like another bit in the video that was cut off for some reason. He said, but we're going to continue to arm Taiwan to make sure that they can defend themselves. That's the next bit that he says. So we're saying we acknowledge the one China policy because Taiwan is part of China apparently, and that's based on what we said previously. But then the bit that you didn't see, like I said, the video got cut off there for some reason. But we're going to continue to arm them. And the strategic ambiguity is like, my head, man, I'm like, why would you say both of those things in that one sentence? It just doesn't make any sense, man. Stop it.
No. And he said, we do not support Taiwan independence. But apparently Nancy Pelosi and all the other politicians didn't get that memo because they've taken special trips over to Taiwan, standing with the president, prime minister, whoever that is, saying, yeah, we support your independence. So, these guys are not on the same page. I think it all depends on what day of the week it is and who they're talking to,
And Joe Biden on camera several times saying, yeah, if China invade, we're going to support Taiwan.
Yeah.
On camera.
Yeah.
They don't know their ass from their elbow, and that's because people behind him are going, don't say that, boss. Retract that. No, we didn't mean that we were going to go there and like send an aircraft carrier. We didn't mean that. We were not going to support them that way.
Yeah. Whenever the president talked, you always check in the next day to see what he really meant.
See if they retracted it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's very strange. There's nothing that came out of Antony Blinken's trip from China other than strategic ambiguity continues. But, one good thing about it that did come out about it is that he went there. And, if you could pick up the phone and some military general can talk to the Chinese military general and go, if something goes wrong, at least they're talking to each other. We can't pick up the phone to Moscow and talk to those guys. They're not picking up the phone. They're not picking up our call anymore.
Yeah, okay,
so that is one good thing.
But finish that thought. You know where I'm going. Yeah. Okay. But
I'm just trying to think.
He showed up.
At least they're talking. That's a start.
Yeah. But he showed up. It's almost better if he didn't go because
he should have just went on Zoom.
He showed up. I should have just stopped off at Fiji and stayed and had a nice weekend. Instead, he shows up and there wasn't the usual diplomatic welcome.
No red carpet.
No red carpet. No marching bands.
No foreign minister meeting.
Nobody
him,
there
nothing.
to greet him. They had him take an Uber from the airport to the embassy. Okay, so that was obviously a calculated move. They purposely snubbed him. Okay, yep. They knew the world would see him being snubbed. So China no longer feels the need to bow to America. So this is little clues here, all right? A few months ago, you had Biden show up in Saudi Arabia, and the Saudi king did the same thing. He wouldn't shake his hand. And 2 weeks before that, he had called Saudi Arabia, and the king of Saudi Arabia wouldn't take the call. Okay?
MBS is too busy, man. He's got stuff to do with Iran and Syria.
So this administration is having one diplomatic embarrassment after another. This shows the world does not respect this administration, ergo, our country, and we see that with the aggressiveness in which the BRICS nations, the BRICS core alliance is growing. We have now 30 brand new countries putting their applications to join BRICS. And
you gotta wonder, hey, you gotta wonder. Man, oh man.
You know, and for those of you, listen, if you're watching this show for the first time, BRICS is a group of countries. It's BRICS plus, you know, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and, you know, plus 30 more. They're getting together to create a competing currency with the U.S. dollar. This is all part of taking down America. And more countries are feeling, you know, they're feeling not real happy with America right now, and they're starting to take that resentment out economically on America by saying, we don't need the dollar anymore. So the petrodollar, which has been our way of exporting inflation for over 50 years. Well, as the dollar starts to lose its dominance, we're not going to be able to export our inflation anymore. It's going to come back to our shores, and we are going to see hyperinflation. I don't want to go down too far down, but this is the net result. This is why it does matter to us. These geopolitical issues do matter to us, and the fact, and when America is not respected anymore, it has severe consequences to our standard of living, because everything you own, everything you want to do is going to become more expensive. They made a big deal last week about how the CPI number came in at 3.9 instead of 4.1. It's going. Listen, okay, so inflation did not go down. Okay, the only thing that happened was the rate of inflation went down. Oh my God, thank God. Everyone popping the champagne cork. The rate of inflation, so the rate at which you're losing money is slowing down a little bit. But you're still losing money. Things are not getting cheaper. They're not going to get cheaper. They're going to be more expensive. Anyway, next topic.
So the graphic on the screen says strategic ambiguity continues on, and you could replace Taiwan with inflation, with BRICS. There's so many things that have strategic ambiguity there as well. You know, one of the reasons that I believe, I saw that about BRICS just yesterday as well. There was 30 odd other countries applying, and there was a big list of them and stuff. And I thought, why is that happening? And, you know, I don't know if you saw Putin in St. Petersburg, and his speech a little bit more has come out about what was going on. He was there for like 4.5 hours on stage. Mm-hmm. He did a big presentation about what happened after World War II. You know, he's well renowned for using history in all of his speeches and whatnot. And he showed how the Soviets went in there and destroyed the Nazis in Poland and Ukraine and what happened. And he joined the dots as well. It's worth looking at, right? And it's pretty shocking, some of the footage he shows, and they show pictures of the crowd, and these people are like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm watching this. It's like horrendous World War II stuff. Anyway, one of the things that come out at that meeting, there's a photo of him with a piece of paper in his hand, Putin that is, and he says, here is the peace deal that was signed in Turkey. And so Erdogan negotiated, we went there, it was early on in the conflict, and they signed it and did that and went back to Kyiv, and they just hucked it in the bin. And
Tell them why.
We are 18 months later, you know, in a full-on war happening there. So there was actually a peace deal that was signed, but that was reneged on by Boris Johnson and Joe Biden. They're like, we don't want peace with these guys. No, there is no peace. We'll supply you weapons somewhere.
That's right.
You'll be right. And they chucked it in the bin.
That's right.
So when you kind of look at what's happening with the Western hegemony and what's happening with the Western world, and those other countries looking at it going, well, if I'm part of the SWIFT system and something goes wrong, they can seize all of our country's assets and do whatever the hell they want with it. Then if we manage to negotiate a peace deal that's not aligned to their CIA or MI6 objectives that they want for us, then we're going to end up in these places. So we just want to be in a place where we're more independent and our currency is worth something. We don't have to use your currency to transact in our country. It doesn't make any sense. So it makes a lot of sense for these countries to be signing up to BRICS.
Yes.
Because they're seeing what's going on with all of these other places around the world, particularly with, you know, if that's true, if that's not Russian propaganda, and it is true what Putin is holding up there.
It's true. I promise you it's true.
You believe
it? I believe it. Listen, we're here, we're all about the unspoken truth here, about the truth. And if you're going to put your blinders on, if you're an American, you can put your blinders on, you're going to ignore. You think that we do everything right. We do, and we're virtuous. Everything we do is above board. You know, this is not the channel for you, because I think that we are still the greatest country on earth, but we're holding on by our fingernails to that title. Okay, and because we have been bad actors to the globe in a lot of ways. part of that is we've been a bully the way we've used the U.S. dollar to flex our muscles, and we're starting to pay the price for that now. Countries are now starting to feel the resentment to it, and they're seeing that they do have an alternative. And because for the past 50 years, people assumed that everyone had to use the U.S. dollar. It was so dominant because the U.S. was so strong, but we're not that strong anymore. And part of and that is the core of that is the way we've treated our finances. We have spent our money into oblivion. Our U.S. dollars, our fiat currencies are not worth anything. They're literally being printed at ungodly rates, and it is unsustainable. The U.S. dollar is going to collapse. It's just a matter of when. Okay, and that's why you got to get that gold and silver, man, and you got to get your money out of the bank, because there is going to be a comeuppance someday. I don't know when it is, when it's going to be, but it's going to happen. And these countries, they're like vultures. They're seeing, right? Okay, U.S. isn't as strong as it used to be, and they're starting to flex their muscles. The Pan-African, contact, where they're pulling together to do business outside of the U.S. dollar, just inside of their local currencies. So so this BRICS deal and the idea that that Russia and Ukraine had a peace deal on the table, and the kibosh was put on it by Boris Johnson, Biden, and the other Western countries.
Well, that was all chucked out as propaganda, but then Putin's holding up the piece of paper going, here.
No,
but it's true.
I'll tell you that's what happened. And this is good. There are people behind this war. I mean, what is in this war for America? What's in it for us? Oh, we're defending democracy.
Covering up the child trafficking, covering up the biolabs, paying Zelensky off at the cost of Ukrainians. It's unbelievable.
Just look, we're not defending democracy, okay? Let's all agree to that right now. Let's get that on. We're not there to defend democracy.
Exactly right. We're there to destabilize and ultimately destroy Russia. But that's not going very well, and I don't think that's going to go well at all.
And not only that, but this is a money laundering operation. There are a lot of people in the suburbs of Washington, D.C. building brand new houses off of this war. Okay, this is a money laundering operation.
That's actually what it comes down to when you boil it down, right? Just people pocketing the money, people just enriching themselves off other people's misery.
Our Pentagon is loving this because these billions of dollars of weapons we're sending them our surplus stuff, right? The bullets that are collecting dust in the warehouses. So it's a chance for them to get them out of the warehouses so they can fill up those warehouses with brand new shiny
new stuff
bullets.
That works better. Yeah, absolutely. All right, I want to bring the show to a conclusion by reminding everybody. Yeah, it goes quickly, right?
Yeah.
I want to remind everybody that no matter who's in charge and what country that you're in, I just want to remind you that the government cannot control the weather. And no matter what they do, no matter what legislation they pass, they can't control the weather. It's just simply not true. And I'm a believer that it's true, man. I'm a believer that you don't have to. Some people that are not capitalists, I don't know what you would call them, would say that you shouldn't try and get rich because in order for you to get rich, somebody else will get poor. But in a capitalist meritocracy that we live in, that's just not true.
No.
When you get wealthy from providing products or services and helping other people. You're not taking from other people. But for some reason, the government thinks that in order to make something better, they have to destroy something at the same time. So if they want us to go to green energy and make the world a better place, then we need to destroy coal and fossil fuels and everything that's made us great and got us to this point where we are. And they also believe that third world countries shouldn't be able to use those things to get to where we are either. It's the most hypocrisy you've ever seen on planet Earth. I just want to remind you something with one of my favorite senators right here. Take a look.
The Sydney Morning Herald reported that weather experts fear air pollution, if unchecked, will bring on a new ice age. In 1978, a documentary was made featuring Leonard Nimoy of Star Trek fame, who told viewers during the lifetime of our grandchildren, Arctic cold and perpetual snow could turn most of the inhabitable portions of the planet into a polar desert. In the late 90s and early 2000s, we were being told that humans had punched a hole in the ozone layer and the sun's ultraviolet rays were going to kill us all. Alarmist rhetoric about man-made climate change is nothing new. The United Nations and the media have been pushing it for decades, but over time the narrative has shifted from global cooling to global warming. And in fact, several months ago, Greta Thunberg deleted a tweet from 2018 which read, "A top climate scientist is warning that climate change will wipe out all of humanity unless we stop using fossil fuels over the next 5 years." These prophecies of doom simply never come true. The polar bears are still here, the sea hasn't risen, the ozone layer is fine, but the point of this messaging is to make you afraid. And why? Because if a climate apocalypse is imminent, then governments of the world can centralise their power and control your actions with the so-called emergency. It's a Trojan horse for globalism led by the United Nations and their puppet masters in the Chinese Communist Party. This is not serving Australian interests. These entities are not serving Australian interests. They're trying to control us and they're trying to make us weak, but that is the real emergency.
I feel like, Ed, we're in a position here in Australia where we're about to go over the edge and we can save ourselves from going over the edge. I feel like we're still holding on. We're still holding on to our autonomy, and the agendas and the powers that be in the world haven't really quite got hold of us yet. If this voice to Parliament gets up, it will, because that opens the door to all of this climate change garbage, digital IDs, central bank digital currencies, and all of those things. But none of that has happened yet. Yeah. So, kind of, not really, sort of.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay. This is an issue of degree, right?
Yeah, that's true.
We've already lost a lot of our freedoms, and it was in stark relief over the past 3 years when we had that worldwide flu, and everybody turned their lives upside down in order to serve the narrative, right? So it was an unbelievably successful experiment for the powers to be. If they wanted, for me, I think it was an experiment in control to see what they could get us to do, and it was probably successful beyond their wildest dreams. They probably could not believe how successful it was. We actually got 90% of the world to put that poison in their arm. And
well, that's why I wanted to call, the graphic on the screen says the government can't control the weather, but they can control you. So don't make the same mistake, ladies and gentlemen. Here's the unspoken truth. Don't make the same mistake that you made in COVID. Don't believe anything that they say, because it's simply not true. It's not true that the world is going to freeze. It's not true that the world is going to melt. It is simply not true. And if you allow that to encroach into your mind, you're buying into the narrative and you're creating the next crisis. The whole reason that COVID worked and all of that control worked in the way that it actually did is because you believed what the media said. But we now know the media lied. The number one doctor on American TV promoting vaccinations won't even go and talk to another human being publicly because he's worried about being found out as a liar. They perpetuated a lie for 3 years, and most of the world bought into it. Why are you so gullible? That's the truth. I don't mean to be mean or nasty or rude, but why are you so gullible? The media lied to you and the government lied to you for 3 years, and you bought into it. This climate change stuff is even worse, because what they want to do is restrict your autonomy permanently into a 15-minute city, to take your vehicle away from you, to stop you from eating certain foods, and they want to control you, and you're allowing them to do it. Don't allow them to do it. Simply do not believe anything the government says about climate change, because it's not true. It's an agenda. And I'm not saying climate change is not true. I'm saying what the government is telling you about climate change is simply not true, because what they told you about COVID was not true. It was a lie. The whole thing was a lie. It's just, my mind boggles. Like, why are you running around wearing a mask? I can remember, I was saying to Susie yesterday, I was laughing about it because we were talking about what was here. I must have told about 100 people to fuck off. Yeah? And why put a mask on? Fuck off, mate. And I realized that actually didn't work. It didn't work. When I said those words, when I was rude to somebody and I was a bit threatening to somebody, it never worked. And then one day I was in the supermarket and I didn't have a mask on, and someone goes, "Put your mask on." I looked at him squarely in the face and I said, "Make me." And they went, "Oh." And then they ran away quietly with their tail between their legs, right? And they probably rang the police or some shit like that. I don't know.
So that was you. That was you being nice.
That was me being nice, right? Make me. You can't make me do anything because it's not a communist society. You don't have a gun to my head. You can't make me.
Well, that's it, right? The government has all the guns, physically, metaphorically and literally, right? So
doesn't matter. You still can't make me do it.
No. Listen, in times like that, when your freedoms are being challenged, that's when your principles are really going to be tested.
Yes, exactly.
If they tell you, unless you put your mask on, we are physically going to throw you into a concentration camp, like I know they have in Australia. They have them in Australia. I did a video on it.
Right? I'll just stay here. That doesn't matter. I'll stay here for as long as make me.
Well, there you go. So if you're willing to pay the price that the government imposes on you, if you're willing, if they say, yeah, well, we're going to charge you a $10,000 fine, there's nothing you can do about it because we're going to go into your bank account whether you want it or not. And we're going to take it.
Well, they did that in Canada, didn't they?
And your daughter is not going to be allowed into this college because she lives with you and she might have gotten the flu from you. They have ways. They have ways. They have ways to pressure you. They have ways to ruin your life. So if the government really, really wants something and it challenges your principles, then that's when your integrity is really going to be tested. Most times we can, shake things off as inconvenience. Oh, whatever. Okay, whatever. Go ahead and I'll pay the $100 fine. No, okay, whatever. I'll sit at home. but then it'll get worse and worse and worse. And this is what happens in authoritarian states, right up to the point where they throw you into a fucking gulag in Siberia. Where you chew your fingers.
They didn't have to throw you into a gulag, right? They put you in in your home. That was your self-imposed gulag. It was just easier to lock everybody in their own home than it was to lock them up in a jail. The jails aren't big enough.
Yeah.
And cheaper.
However, do not underestimate. If they want their power, they're going to get it any way they can, and they're going to keep pushing. That's why we have to push back, and it can't just be one person here and there. It's got to be a group call. There are more of us than there are of them. Mm-hmm. So, if we are willing to stand up, they cannot control us all.
But that's the problem, Ed. Like, I'm willing to stand up, and I don't care, because it doesn't matter what you say or what you do. I don't care. I'm just not going to comply with what you're telling me to do. No matter what you tell me to do, no matter what threat you put in front of me, I'm just not going to comply. And the whole reason that COVID existed, the whole reason that all of that rubbish happened, was because everybody did what they told them to do. You can't. So how come I can't go out there now, and if I say to somebody, if I'm standing in the line waiting for my coffee and I just say to someone, "Hey man, can you just move back for us for a sec?" Imagine if I said this, "Can you just move back for us for a sec?" What do you mean? Just move away, man. Move 1.5 meters away from me, yeah? What? Why? What? Why? Because, you have to social distance. Like, why don't you have a mask on? Yeah, because I'm not vaccinated. But you are. How many of you had? Have you had 2 or 3 or 4? Which one? Because you're supposed to get vaccinated to protect me because I'm unvaccinated. How come you haven't done that? How come you're not doing that to protect me? Like these people, I know the exact day that COVID went away. The exact day here in Sydney. I can tell you the exact day. The exact day COVID went away was when Scott Morrison came out and said there's not going to be any more testing. There's no more testing. And the testing facilities had cars banked up for kilometers of people, of hypochondriacs going in there, getting shit shoved in their face, getting their DNA tracked and traced, everything like that. That was kilometers and kilometers of zombies. These people were zombies. And when it came time to get something stabbed into your body, there's kilometers and kilometers of people lining up to be stabbed with poison. And I'm just like going, what's wrong with you people?
Well, the brilliance, in my opinion, of the strategy by the government was the way that they got us to do most of the work for them.
Yes.
They got us to shame each other if we didn't get it. right? I remember during the midst of this, I went to a family event, and I had all of my nieces and nephews, the little shits, little nephews sitting on the table, and everyone was lecturing me. I was the only one at the table who had not gotten the jabby jab, and I wasn't planning on getting it.
What were they lecturing you about?
And they're lecturing me. Don't you think you're putting us all at risk by not getting the?
I don't. I'm not.
This is at the height of all this crap, right? They were using social shaming. You had celebrities going on TV telling you how irresponsible you are and how bad a person you are if you did not do these things, right? So
don't they look stupid now?
Well, you would think. Well, let me ask you: what price are these people paying? Any? None.
Well, their credibility is completely destroyed, but for some reason, people have got really short memories. Yeah, that's the reason why it's not.
Yeah. Jimmy Kimmel is still on the air.
I know. Who would ever watch that?
All these news. Have you seen one news anchor lose his job because he took up a hard position? Look at Rachel Maddow; she's still there. These people, they're all still there.
There's hope.
There's no accountability here. Who's been fired? Tell me. Who's been fired? I mean, Fauci just retired, right, with like an insanely golden parachute. So where's the accountability? Who's gone to jail for misinformation?
Well, there is hope. There is hope for all of that media garbage, right? And I laugh because we'll have the last laugh, Ed. You and I just simply refuse to do what we were told to do because we don't believe in socialism. And we definitely don't believe in fascism or communism. And that's the way the fascist dictators of our countries actually behaved. I wear
it as a badge of honor.
Same. Yeah, right? Same. I think it's funny. But, the hope for me is that all of these journalists, like, I don't see mainstream TV, right? Because it's not plugged into the antenna. It's like I got Netflix and whatever. But I only see TV when I go to the gym and when I'm on the bike or the treadmill, and it's not the treadmill I have to look like that, so I don't really see it, but on the bike I kind of see it. And every night now and then, like when I go after here, it's like morning television on there, and I'm watching it, looking at it, thinking, what is that? What's that ad? Like, I'm not exposed to any of these things. I don't see any of it. But I was there the other day and I thought to myself, the people and news as you see it right now on mainstream media and television is going to go away because the relevance of that news is going away because people are getting their news and their information from other sources like this, like Twitter, like wherever else it will be. And eventually, the people that you see as news anchors, the Jimmy Kimmels, the Rachel Maddows, and all of those people that are news anchors that you're familiar with are going to be replaced by AI.
Well, maybe not. Listen,
it's the reality of it. The journalists are going to be replaced.
None of these channels anymore, none of them beat the Cartoon Network. Okay, they have no following. So
that's what I'm saying. That the news still has relevance, but it'll be via AI.
Well, okay, they've lost all their relevancy, right? These anchors. So you gotta, and these anchors, they're reading the script and they're getting the green light from their superiors. You go, why would they keep shouting this stuff? They keep losing people with the stuff they're shouting, but they keep doing it. Why do you do it? I'll tell you why. It's because these are all just one branch of larger corporations. Fox News, for example, we're talking about the Fox News channel is dead now because they've gone woke. But do you think the Fox Corporation cares? No, because it's a woke culture at the top. And they see that as a lost leader. They see that they want that high ESG score, that high DIA score, and so they're going to push that agenda. They're going to push that wokeism. And if they lose customers, so what? That's just the cost of doing business. It's kind of like a throwaway line on the P&L sheet.
It's very strange, isn't it?
So these corporations, they just see it as a cost of doing business. As part of their bigger narrative. So that's why they keep doing the things they're doing, even though the ratings keep going down and down and down. Because for them, for them that is a badge of honor for the people that they want to impress.
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right again, bang on. Ladies and gentlemen, as we bring the show to a close here today, I just want to remind everybody that we're also available as a podcast. So make sure you pop on open your favorite podcasting app, whether that's Spotify, Apple, Stitcher, or something else. Pop on that open and look for The Unspoken Truth, and you can always get the back episodes there as well. Don't forget to like and subscribe here on YouTube, and make sure you scroll down and come on over to the Telegram channel as well. But just remember, that comes with a word of warning, and that is a very real warning. Please don't pay lip service to that. If you click on something that says caution on it and it's covered up, just know that you're not going to be able to unsee those things. Ed, have you got any parting comments before we close it out today, mate?
Yes, God save the Queen.
I think that has to be our mantra for the show at the end of the show. God save the Queen. See you tomorrow, same bad time.
Yeah, but Paulie stole my. I've been waiting all day, all episode to use that line. Paulie put it. Darn it! No, yeah, that's it. Yeah, good call, Paulie.
God save the Queen. See you, mate.
Yeah, see you guys.